Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for stopping by again. Now, as I've said before, I have to say again, this is not a news site, certainly not daily news site or even weekly. I come and speak when I think I've got something significant enough to share. Since I'm not looking for your money, I don't come back and pound you again and again and again with videos so that I remind you that you need to buy my newsletter or something like that, because you don't. It's free, everything. So I would tend to come back a little less frequently than some of the folks out there with YouTube channels, and that's fine. I mean, they're in business. Okay, I will again put the link down below, because we have some new people coming in every time, which will take you to a map, the International Air Transport Association. If you click on Panama on the map, it will give the most recent announcement of what the government requires for arrivals, or who is being allowed to arrive, which right at the moment is strictly Panamanian citizens and people like myself who are already residents of the country. We can come in. That next week is the beginning officially of when we have new flights of new people, allowing them in, not just those on transit. We already get people on transit to other countries. That's quite a few of those. But now it will be for new arrivals. All I can tell you is that at the moment, at least through this period, for citizens and residents coming down recent weeks, they've had fundamentally two requirements other than the usual temperature check and all this business. And one of those is a polymerase chain reaction, a PCR test. It's one of the tests for COVID that is not particularly pleasant, but it works, and they require that you get a negative test showing that you don't have COVID no longer than 48 hours, 48 hours before departure. Now, that can be challenging depending on where you live. Some places have lots of test kits around, others don't. Some take forever so take 4 days or 5 days just to get the results back to you because you're overloaded. Whereas others can do it much more quickly. The new equipment coming out, if they've got that, can do it in a matter of a couple hours and then turn around and on and on and on. You've got to find out how to get that PCR test. At least you do now. Now, starting in the weeks to come, I expect in the beginning they're going to ask for the same thing until they get a grip on who is coming in and what's happening. But it makes life that much more complex for everybody. And then, of course, they have the right to insist that you be on 2-week quarantine. Now, for people coming in that are residents and citizens, 99% of them, of course, have a home here, so this is hardly a major problem. So whether that's the case coming down in weeks to come, again, I don't know. So the map will help tell you what the most recent regulations are from the Panamanian government. Other sources may as well, but it's not one of these situations where suddenly everything goes back to normal. No. Everything goes one step at a time. And we're in the process right now of completing a number of these steps domestically. And we will be off our very strict quarantine starting next week. A number of businesses are going to be allowed to be open. Among those now are hair salons and barbershops. You can only go in, though, with an appointment. And trust me on this, trying to just get through on the phone is hard right now. But in any event, you can't go over and stand in line. It's not quite that easy. So I'll hopefully be able to get something done about that next week. Although, as you might imagine, there are large numbers of people interested in getting their hair cut, styled, or whatever. And one little old guy like me, get trampled in the mob. So we'll see what goes on. But it's sort of fun. But more importantly, it will be able to be out from 5 a.m. until 7 p.m. We'll still have the curfew in the evening initially. And it'll keep, it will still be broken up in other forms. 3 days of the week will be women, 3 days will be men. People wonder, why on earth do we do that? And I say, it's much simpler than if you're trying to maintain give everybody a chance to get out, but not have the entire population out at the same time, or at least 80% or something like that, which just increases the possibility of infection, then you would do things like, when it's automobiles, for example, they'll have, in some countries, they have to have some regulation. They'll say, all right, these days, plates ending with 0 through 4 are on the road, and 5 through 9 are on other days, and so on. It's the same thing here, only so much easier when you make it men and women, because then it's obvious. Either the person is a man or is a woman, and they're either out there when they should be or they're not, and if they're not, then they need to have a pass, given a reason, because there are people, or women working every day, and there are men working every day. They have passes to allow them to do that. It's sorting itself out pretty much. We have a little confusion occasionally, but people are being reasonable about the whole thing. And more importantly, the idea that for 3 days of the week at least, I'm just going to be able to go out in daylight hours, and 5 a.m. is a little early for that, but still, daylight hours, and whenever I want to is going to be a big step up, and do all sorts of things I haven't been able to do before. Restaurants are not yet open. Again, there's a lot of pressure for that. Their delivery, lots and lots of takeout and delivery. That's gotten really common here, but as it has in many places. But that's not going to save a lot of restaurants who are in major trouble. So we'll see what happens with that. That will begin to open up malls, shopping malls. You can buy things by internet or by phone or however you want to do it. Email, I guess, and you can purchase things, but you can pick them up, but you have to get them just outside the store or on the street or in the parking lot or one thing or another. That's not going to be enough to keep these malls operating, so that has to change too. So the pressure is unquestionably there. What we need to see is how well we handle this, because actually we've done extremely well here, and I'm very, very pleased with it. I mean, I get sometimes annoyed, but more often amused, or sometimes just tired, but of expats here who complain because Panamanians aren't out rioting in the streets and demonstrating and hollering and screaming and shouting and like we're all just sheep and we do what we're told and all this stuff. Oh, these people, what a tiresome lot they are. They obviously know nothing about Panama or Panamanians. But the simple point is this: we have every opinion you've got on the subject, and we've got people who feel very strongly in different views. But we're one society. We Panamanians, in the face of a common enemy, unite. That's all you need to know. It doesn't make any difference whether we're talking about World Cup soccer game or whether we're talking about a pandemic. They would do that. They just do. And Panamanians, I've seen them very definitely, who very powerfully disagree on a number of topics, politically or religiously or one thing or another, but who will join arms, shoulder to shoulder immediately in the event that somebody comes up and accuses or attacks Panama. Whoa, boy! So we have that. So here we've had people will write and say, you've had 400 or 500, 600, 800 people who've been arrested over the weekend for breaking the curfew. Well, yes, and they're almost all young, and they live in a metropolitan area of about 2.4 million people. If you think that's a big demonstration, a big deal, you just aren't hanging out down in Lima, Peru, or in Santiago, Chile, or 1,000 other Latin American cities, or for that matter, in the United States, and Europe, and the Pacific Rim of Asia, and most of the world. I have seen more conflict and violence even, and anger and hatred and everything else in one day in cities all over this world than I have seen here in Panama City in 5 months of being under quarantine. And it's not because we're sheep, and it's not because we're not capable of independent thinking. Most certainly are, but because we stick together. And we'll deal with it this way. And later on, we'll all point the finger and say it should have been done this way or that way. Some of that, of course, is always underway. But you don't try to stop things, and you just don't. And it's encouraging, because in comparison to our neighbors, it's a very different situation here. And a lot of folks here don't appreciate that because they don't keep up in depth with what's going on in the neighborhood, and it's not good. It's not good what's going on in the neighborhood. That includes Costa Rica. So, and they may be doing better in some sense. Costa Rica's had a pretty good deal here going with the health system, but they're in such terrible financial shape. I don't know how they're going to get through the next year or two. I just don't know. So there are going to be some challenges down the road for them that we don't face. So what I'm trying to say, in effect, is that, yeah, we've had our moments here. We had one demonstration that was really quite noisy and quite loud and quite, in line with others. 7 people were arrested. 7 people out of 2.4 million. Well, or even if you want to close it in on the near metro area, you're still around 2 million people. I mean, we have lots of folks, but we don't turn out 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 of them. We don't burn buses, and we don't trash the metro stations, and we don't do a lot of stuff like that, but it still happens. So, elsewhere, I am proud of the country for being able to do that. Now, as we make this transition, we do have to use our heads here and take it one step at a time. And I know it's going to be hard, and people are going to rush right out, but we're just going to look. Here, I've got this. I'll show you a little thing I just noticed in the Journal, Wall Street Journal today. It shows a second wave of infections in COVID-19 in Europe. You can see it here. That's not good news. Not good news at all. It's very unpleasant to have to see that. We don't want to see that either, you see. So as a result of that, we need to, and I think we have as good a shot at it as anybody, so we're hoping for the best. In the meantime, this is also because you want to come down, and we want you to come down. We want it to be safe for you to come down, and we want you to be able to do what you want to do when you get here. So we're working on that. It's a very serious concern, obviously, to people in real estate. It's a very serious concern, but it's a serious concern to everybody across the board for a whole variety of reasons. We're a business country. You can get used to that real fast. If you aren't aware of that, we're not a tourist country. We're a business country at heart and soul. So this is what people want done. But, well, we'll do it together. We'll do it as a group. So that's where we are with that. Oh, and yes, people often ask me about vaccines and so on. I think the vaccines are very interesting. I don't anticipate them being available for widespread use or having a major impact until next year. Which I could be surprised nicely and so on. Personally, I would prefer that we make a little more progress. They already have work on this, and this is a simple way for you to take a test. Cheap, easy, simple, fast, to determine whether or not you've gotten infected. All right? And you could do one in the morning, you could do one in the evening for that matter. A way that people would have to self-test before they walked out the door. And because it's not, it is possible to do this. And the work is up to a point now, I think they're around 85% accuracy. That's the sort of thing. If we have something like that, then people will know, oh, hey, I've got it, and it's at this very early stage. Number one, they don't go out and infect other people. Number two, they do whatever it can be found to be done to reduce the impact and to take care of themselves properly. I think that would do a lot right there, and it'd be a lot cheaper, and these kits could be a lot easier to distribute than a vaccine, which is good, but it just requires, it's a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult to distribute. That's my little comment for the day. I'll take whatever comes down the road, so as long as it makes things better. But as far as the vaccines are concerned, I do keep track of them. I'll leave you with another link down in the description. If you're a glutton for punishment, please feel free to go down and take a look at it. I give them credit for a noble effort to try to explain what's happening with vaccines, the various trials, in sort of an artistic way, or, using graphs and so on, using artwork to try to make it easier to understand. The fact that they failed is a small detail. They really did try. There are over 200 vaccines that are under investigation at the moment. The great bulk of them are not yet to a testing level, but we have more all the time. If you do go into the site, then don't worry about it. It's going to, like, what's going on here? Just ignore the little funny-looking needle syringe in the center. That's artwork. You'll understand that later. on the left hand, just everything's on the left-hand side. Just scroll down. Just keep it going down, and numbers will show up, and things, and some explanations. And I think it's really set up for people like science writers and news broadcasters and people in media to help them understand what's going on. And there are people maybe with some science background themselves. So this may be way over your head. But on the other hand, not all of it, it gives you a sense of how much work is going on, where it's going on, what state it's at currently, and so forth, and the many different ways there are to approach this particular disease. So if you're interested in that, I'll put that, why not? I'll just put it down in the description. You can take a look if you want to. Here, other than that, beyond that, as we loosen up, as things begin to shift and change, I'm beginning to get more concerned about being prepared for folks coming down if there's anybody who needs assistance, the Metro Mats thing. I mean, we have a tendency here to worry about certain things, rightfully so, but we can, for lack of detailed information, tend to exaggerate them or misunderstand them or whatever. One that has been quite a controversy here is we've had a couple places where they had explosions from gas. And the gas systems put into these projects were not done properly, and so on and what have you. And it's one of those lousy, sloppy construction things that never should have happened. But they got through their inspections anyhow. And that's been very, very, obviously very damaging. Nobody likes to think of their stove exploding or whatever. So remember, we're a huge metro area. But the point is this has happened. If you hear people talk about it, sometimes you think it's happening every week, but I mean, it's not. Right? But that's not the point. The point is that there's been huge public pressure to get all the gas systems in the city checked out to make sure this doesn't happen again. Well, that's in the hands of the fire department. They're the ones who have to oversee it. Trying to get all this work done. They have immense pressures on them, whatever. So people will talk about this. So my attitude toward this is that there is a tendency to panic, to think, oh my gosh, what about this, what about that? It's, for the people I work with, I talk to people here, and I just say to them, you need to know if you're going to show so-and-so a property here, because I'm not there to hang over people's shoulders. I mean, you've got to know where they stand vis-a-vis the gas question at that particular project. And have they been tested? Has it been done recently? Have corrections been made? Because a lot of that's been done. What's the situation? You need to know. And it's something I would say to you, you need to ask. Just, if nothing else, it shows you're not really as ignorant as most people sound when they come down here. So it's not you do it as a threatening thing. You're just interested. Remember, there's no use to trying to get into an argument with somebody here. It's just silly. What you just do is you express interest and say, I hear this is a problem. Have you had this project? Has it been investigated and so forth? And has it got its approvals? And when did that happen? Hopefully in the last couple of years, that sort of routine. And I'm just stressing with any real estate agent that I might advise somebody, working with someone, and I know all of them personally, I just say, I expect you to do that. So I want to be ready for the sorts of things we may run into. We have other problems. We know that one big name development in particular, where maintenance is a substantial problem for some of the properties there. I'm not going to talk about who they are. It's ridiculous. Who wants to get sued? But but it's legitimate that they complain, because I'm talking about some of many apartments. But the point is that you need to know this stuff. And you know this sort of stuff, you can help. We moved one person very rapidly, like overnight, from one project where they were very ready to move on it, just a few months ago, because we haven't had anybody down recently, like instantly, because we found, rain damage, problems. This is this particular area, part of the development. Can't see it on the outside, but on the inside, it's a problem. Whoa, okay, it's on the no list. So that's the sort of thing I need to be concerned with, and I want to be sure that my folks do their job as best they can, and they will. I wouldn't work with them if they didn't. So we're trying to get ready in that sense too. So I don't know, though, when that day comes, whether you're coming in a couple weeks or coming in a couple months or whatever it is, and I don't know whether you'll be using our, you don't have to use our, my service, so to speak, is there to help you. You know, there are endless numbers of actual real estate agents. I am not a real estate agent. I don't own an agency. I'm not related to any agency, okay? But I mean, there are enough of them here. You won't have to worry about finding somebody willing to sell your properties, okay? Yeah, but I like to think that we'll do to help, especially with those who have who are concerned and would like to be sure they dot the I's and cross the T's, or whatever, however you want to put it. So that's where we stand. I almost finished. I rewrote the, as I do all the time, the letter I'm preparing for the retirement wave membership that I'll talk to you about too. I'm taking a completely different look at things than I normally do because of the nature of the situation right now. And I will be continuing to work on that through the weekend and hopefully get it out by Sunday evening. But, you know, when I say that, it's almost automatic. If something goes wrong and I'm not able to do that. So just don't listen to me. I will get it out when I get it out. And I'll let you know when that happens. In the meantime, let's all hope that next week, as we begin to open up, we do have some international flights, just a few, but some coming in, that runs smoothly, that people start to act responsibly over the next weekend, and we can really get on to the business of living our lives the way we want to live them, not the way we have to live them sometimes. Thank you very much for dropping in, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.